Hi everyone, I'm Jace. Right, the COVID-19 pandemic continues to have far-reaching effects on the global economy and our stock market. So, what can we do to survive through this crisis and get our finances in working order? So, today for our next resilient podcast series, we're very happy to actually invite Hariz back with us again. Hariz, hi, say hi.
Hi guys. Hi Jace. Thank you for inviting me back. It's always an honor to be speaking to you guys. I think today, I'll try to make whatever that we're gonna talk about, something that we can do immediately. I think right now a lot of people are affected in many different ways, and it's something that we never saw, would happen, and it really kind of like hit us almost in a flash. So I hope to be able to give you guys, some good answers, some things that we can do a little bit better or different moving forward.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Thank you for your time as well. So for those who probably know, right, Haris is our one of our previous podcast guests. He is also an independent, being a freelance voiceover talent. He's actually also an independent financial advisor, pursuing his business interests in digital marketing, copywriting, and of course finance. Right. You can actually check out our previous podcast sessions where Haris as well as another freelancers Ryan share about their perspective of financial management for freelancers, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, welcome back and thank you so
Thank you.
much for coming back again, right? So maybe just briefly share with us how have you been, especially during the last 2 months?
I think everybody's affected. I'm affected, of course. I think the thing is, how do we roll with the punches? Because we are getting punched, left, right, center. Every day that this goes along, circuit breaker was, I don't know. Some people expected it. Some people did not expect how long it would last. And now we're in phase one of reopening, and it still feels like circuit breaker, part three. And so yeah, everybody's affected, but we do what we can, and especially if for some of us who are lucky enough to still be able to make an income and to work right now. I am fortunate enough to be in the finance industry where we are deemed as essential services, and I think the first few weeks of circuit breaker period, I think we were still able to meet clients, but then that quickly got taken away from us. So everybody then now has to do online Zoom and all that. So it's been a challenge trying to adapt to that. And I know I should have way before this, but I think it's a good time to re-strategize and see what we can do moving forward. I think as economies are now reopening, it will get better. But yeah, I think that so far it has been okay. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Great, great. Yeah, I guess everybody is trying to adapt to what we call the new normal, right? Where everything
Definitely.
need to be conducted online, right? Including
Mm-hmm.
advising, including
Yeah.
talking to clients and things like that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, as you have rightly pointed out, this current pandemic was really something that caught a lot of us off guard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Looking back, right, how do you think, as freelancers, we can actually get our finances in working order, and in your point of view, to withstand, right, a
Mm-hmm.
situation like this, how much cash do you think a freelancer should hold
Yeah.
at any one time?
Okay. So I think, Jace, one of the most important things to understand about finance is that a lot of it is preparation. Similar to medicine, the prevention is better than cure, and sometimes cure is surgery. So I think right now, for those that are bleeding on the table, on the surgery table financially, surgery is something that is a must. And the thing about surgery, it's never nice. And some people may not survive, and we have to understand that that's gonna be a fact. So just some things regarding preparation. I think right now, for people who are self-employed, I think there are two big different areas where you can see yourself as a self-employed person, or you can see yourself as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. And I think more people who are self-employed have to realize that they need to see themselves more as business owners, other than just somebody who doesn't work 9 to 5 and can work odd hours. I think that moving towards that understanding that, okay, I'm a business owner, could help in terms of their finance. But onto your question regarding how much cash should people hold. One thing that I do want to mention is that a lot of financial advice written online is written for the 9 to 5 employee, somebody who has reliable active income on a month-to-month basis that is pretty much consistent as we go along. And a lot of financial advice is not written for variable income. It's not written for somebody who can't really commit, who doesn't know how much they're going to earn next year, doesn't know how much they're going to earn next month. So I think that when we talk about preparations and stuff like this, how much cash you should hold, we're talking about emergency funds. Right, so a lot of people talk about emergency funds. Hold 6 months of expenses is the usual, term that everybody says. Hold 6 months of expenses, blah blah blah. But I think people who are self-employed and maybe also business owners who have variable income, you might want to bump that up. I think holding 12 months, 18 months, 24 months isn't too bad. Holding a little bit more cash, now that we see how important cash flow is, I think it's not that big of an issue, because you see, if you have reliable income, 6 months of expenses should be enough. But I think right now we should bump it up to about 12 months of expenses. So, and this is not just, your day-to-day expenses. When, as a self-employed person, if you are running a little bit more of a business, you have business expenses as well. That should incorporate how much cash you should hold. So I think it's quite normal to hold, 12 months. It could be 20 plus thousand, 50,000, depends on how you run your business. I think that is something that, again, should have been done in preparation, but I think right now, moving forward, it's something that we should be building as quickly as possible.
Right. So for those self-employed, with a series of government support schemes that's been launched for self-employed person, right? For those self-employed who qualified for SIRS, the Self-Employed
Yes.
Incentive Relief Scheme in that sense, what do you
Mhm.
think they can do now to actually fully utilize the money that was provided to
Yeah.
meet, their current situation?
Okay. So I think anybody that has obligations, such as rent, such as creditors, should do that first. Any money that's coming in, should be survival first. So if you need to utilize this money immediately, and then if the 3,000, comes in, well, it's 9,000 over three different payouts, right? But if that money is coming in and it immediately has to go out to pay for things that you're obligated to pay for, please, by all means, do that. But there would be a second group of people who see this as, okay, this would help. I'm surviving, yes, so I can still put food on the table, and this is bonus money. For those that are receiving SIRS, and to them SIRS is, a little bit of bonus money, a little bit of cushion, you need to understand that this money, is meant to hold you, for pretty much 9 months. So it was supposed to be, when it started, it was $1,000 per month for 9 months. It's just the way that it's given out. It's 3 times of 3K. So you need to understand that this is 9 months worth of money, right? This is not money that you should finish as quickly as possible. In fact, try as hard as you can to even prolong it even further than that. Because the thing is, we still don't know how long this would last. And for different people in different categories of self-employed. So for example, I recently, saw discussions regarding tattoo artists. So people who are doing, who are tattoo artists, they unfortunately fall into phase 3. So I can go out and get a haircut, which I did yesterday. And it's a one-to-one, business transaction. And it's similar to how tattoo is, but tattoo artists don't get the same treatment. I can't go get a tattoo today, not saying that I would, but I can't do that. And, the government has said that only after a vaccine is found, then we would reopen, such services. We don't know how long that would be. In fact, 9 months might still be too little. It might be even longer than that. We don't know. So I think right now, any SIRS money, any bonus money, any grants you're getting for the government, yes, pay your obligations first, but stockpile that. Don't immediately use it. Don't immediately, buy a new laptop. If things are breaking down, try to hold on for as long as possible. And I think that's pretty much, what it's meant for. And I think government has already said what it's meant for. Do it for that purpose, to really, make it last for as long as you can.
So for now, I think a lot of the freelancers or self-employed probably would have already realized that how important it is to have emergency funding. So for those
Yeah.
who have it, yeah, happy for them. So for those who doesn't, is it too
Yeah.
late or too early for them to start, building their financial safety net now?
Yeah. Again, I think the whole analogy is that if you're bleeding on the surgery table and you need surgery right now, please get that done. Make sure that you can feed yourself, you can feed your family, and that you can still, have shelter over your head over the next few months, right? But if we are going to get out of this, safe and healthy, then we can see how important it is to build financial safety nets. I think that when we talk about financial safety nets, it's not a pool of money. It's not like our national reserves, like I would say. So we're lucky to be in Singapore, and we see that government is very prudent having financial reserves set aside that we can tap on. Not every self-employed person or freelancer or business owner has that huge pool of reserve that they can just, okay, yeah, I think I need to tap on that right now. Instead, when we talk about financial safety nets for the self-employed individual or for the freelancer, it's about having multiple sources of income. Building financial safety nets for somebody who has variable income is about making sure how much more guaranteed income can you add into your monthly pocket, and I think this comes to a point where I would like to bring up where there are 7 sources of passive income. Passive income has had a very bad rep over the last decade or so. A lot of the times when people talk about passive income, they think about get rich quick schemes, but it's not that. It's just an extra $100, $200, $500 every month to your pocket that could help pay for daily necessities, whatever it is. So building immediate sources of passive income other than just your gigs that you have is very important. So I would like to talk about the 7 sources of passive income. So first is dividends from an equity portfolio. So you can buy stocks, you can buy equities, which are basically mean that you hold a part of an existing company. Company does well, you make money. So when a company makes profit, they might give out dividends to shareholders. So dividends from an equity portfolio is something that you can work towards building, and getting dividends on a monthly, quarterly, annually basis could definitely help you out. But there are risks that it comes to equity investments, and that's something that we can talk about on another session, but it's just one source. Secondly, would be coupons from a bond portfolio. Right? So this would be things like in Singapore, we have our Singapore savings bonds that gives out, again, a semi-annual income. These are more guaranteed sources of income. Potential loss of capital is, almost zero. We have our Singapore government securities, and then, you can also buy global bonds. That coupon that gives you on a monthly basis, semi-annual basis, is another way you can get income. Again, this is totally separate from your business, your freelancer, your active variable income. And I think you need to start putting more money into these sources instead. So coupons from a bond portfolio. Thirdly, I think this is more common, would be interests from cash or cash instruments. So having money in the bank right now, we're fortunate enough to see high yield savings accounts giving 1 plus 2% if you are you want to jump through hoops. So that small little extra percentage could definitely help. It's a few $100 maybe on a per year basis, depends on how much cash you're holding. So that's one very important source to have. So interest from cash instruments. Next would be payouts from Social Security or a pension. So this is CPF. For somebody that's quite a bit younger, this is not something you can tap on right now. But if you are a little bit older, past 55, 65 years old, and let's say you're still a freelancer, you're not fully retired yet, CPF is a way to get passive income. If you're outside of Singapore, your own government pension or Social Security benefits is one way to get an income. So make sure you abuse the system. Most of the time, it's free money. At least in Singapore, you have a guaranteed 2.5 to 4% from our CPF account. So make sure you do utilize that, especially as a self-employed individual, because we don't have our employers giving us CPF. This is something that you can consider to use as well. Next would be bonuses, or again similar payouts from insurance policies, which would be in the form of endowment plans, annuity plans, retirement income products. I think this is something that's usually overlooked. Annuity products. Usually you can contribute over a 5-year, 10-year or single premium, and immediately you get income for the rest of your life. This is something that self-employed people can work towards, building a financial safety net of guaranteed income from annuities that can pay you pretty decently as well. It can pay you almost immediately, unlike CPF where you might have to wait till a much older age. So that's one. I think one that I've already covered so many. One thing that I do want to talk about that I think self-employed individuals have an advantage over full-time employees is one very important source of income from intellectual property. Okay. I think intellectual property is something that is almost not really talked about at all. And a lot of people think that, intellectual property means I need to create a product. I need to create a patented product and then sell that. And then, I have to be like Jeff Bezos to have intellectual property. That's far from the truth. So the thing is, right now, as self-employed people, if you are successful in your field and you have nothing to do, write a book, create a course, talk about how to do your job for any budding freelancer, any budding people who want to enter your field. And if you can be a mentor of some sorts and document all these things down, these could be your intellectual property. I think for people who, let's say, are in the immediate creative field, so people who are doing photography, you may already understand intellectual property. You sell rights to your photos and you get a passive income from the businesses that use your resources. But for people who aren't photographers, for example, you can still create certain intellectual property tools that can give you a passive source of income. I think this is actually almost costless sometimes. Right now in the age of, digital age, you don't have to print a book. An ebook is good enough. And I think, you can work towards giving that out, selling that, doing talks. These are things that would build your brand and then give you a form of intellectual property as well. Your own personal branding is a good source of intellectual property. I think I covered most of them. If I missed out, I think I would send something to Creative at Work so that you guys can create a Facebook post about if I've missed out or anything.
That would be very helpful, because I think what you said was really, really, something that is very useful, right, and very practical. I think we often hear from our freelancers is that, because I'm a creative, hence I doesn't know a lot about financial management, right?
Yeah.
So to a freelancer who actually say that to you, what would be your response be?
I think, like every topic, look it up. That's the first thing. I think it's a good thing that you know that you don't know. So there are things that we know, there are things we don't know. We know we don't know, and then there are things we don't know, right? So at least with finance, you don't know, you can go figure it out. And it's not that hard. It's finance is a topic that has been etched into the system for a millennia, pretty much, right? Capitalism isn't new. Earning an income, people talking about saving money is not new. And I think there are tons of free resources out there. Finding a mentor that could be in your field or in a similar field that has been successful, in the financial sense of the word, could also be a way to get immediate knowledge. So look it up. You are lucky to know that you don't know such a topic. So look it up. That's one. Keep reading, keep learning. Unlike math in school, you're not being tested. So, don't have to worry about that. It's no quiz at the end of the day. It's just how you want to, figure out how to plan your own finances. And then a successful mentor that has been there and done that could definitely give you a tip or two.
Yeah. So at what point in time, another very common I would say response that we always get from our freelancers when we ask them about setting aside emergency funds, and things like that. They will always say, because I don't even have enough, I'm living from paycheck to paycheck, so I don't have enough, right? So where do I start? So I'm just wondering, for freelancers like this, what would you advise? What is enough? Like, must they have $2,000 to start, $3,000 to start, right? So what would you?
That's actually a very good question. And I think a lot of the times, when people are saying they're living paycheck to paycheck, of course, I'm not gonna say that there are definitely people who are, you know, they don't make enough, and all the fixed expenses, things that you can't negotiate on, already take up all their money, and I get that. There are definitely people in that category, but we need to understand there are fixed costs and there are variable costs. One thing that I personally don't like, I think budgeting sucks. To be honest, budgeting sucks. Nobody likes it, right? But it is something that's important to at least start with. Every freelancer needs to know all their outflows. I think understanding the evil is the first step forward, you know? And it's not something that you have to keep doing month after month after month. Usually you do it maybe 2 or 3 months and you kind of get the hang of it, and then you know pretty much how much is your average monthly spending, you know? But that first step to do budgeting, to kind of like really write everything down and understand where all your money is going, you might surprise yourself. This is something to I have a friend in the States, right? So he recently called me. This was like a month ago. He recently called me, and now that, we're all facing this issue, his first question to me is, dude, I don't know where I spend my money on, and I think that's actually a very big problem. People don't exactly know where they're spending the money on. Where's this money going? My friend, for example, let's say he makes $5,000. I ask him, so how much do you spend every month? Oh, I spend about $3,000, let's say. So by right, you didn't spend 2,000, right? So after a year, that's 24,000. So last year, if let's say your bank account was 20,000, this year is it 44,000? If it's still 20,000, then maybe you might want to figure that out. Where did your money go? So budgeting sucks, and I understand, but get the rhythm of it at the start. 2 to 3 months of just diligent work, and after that, you don't have to have a hawkeye view on it, on a daily basis. But that's a a place that we all have to work from, understanding how much is coming in and truly how much is going out. I have an interesting method when it comes to budgeting for freelancers. It's actually called a reset to zero method. This is I coined the term myself, reset to zero. When I read about it, it wasn't called this, but the method isn't new. It's just I call it this to make a little bit more sense. So similar, as a self-employed person, I have variable income as well. All right, but I have at least put myself in a situation where on a month-to-month basis, I can have some predictable income. Like, this is like the minimum that I would earn. So there's still some people that the minimum could be zero, and I understand. But if your minimum is like, at least you'll make 1,000 a month, like at least, for example, that to me is then my budget for the month. My minimum amount of money that's going in will be my budget for the month. And that is the total amount of money that I would spend. So what I do is that I have separate bank accounts. Okay. So money goes in, I would transfer this separate budget, into another bank account for the entire month. That's all I can spend. So let's say it's $1,000, right? So I have a separate bank account that only at the start of the month has $1,000. If I finish that $1,000, let's say on the 25th, for example, before the month ends, too bad. I will eat grass for 5 days, And I would have to train myself, of course. This is not something you immediately get into the hang of it. You would slowly understand, and you would then adjust as you go along. But yeah, that's all the money that I can spend for the month. Why is it called reset to zero? Is that I don't allow any balance money to roll over to the next month. And that builds discipline. So for example, let's say I give myself $1,000. On the 31st, I still have $200 left for the month. Does it mean next month I can spend 1,000 too? No. Next month I can still only spend $1,000. This makes sure that there's no creep in your spending. You realize, I'm actually spending a little bit lesser. Good. Then that just means you save that much more. Not that you allow yourself to spend a little bit more next month. So this can only work when you truly understand your minimum income per month. Usually, after maybe a few years doing freelancing, you might have a hang at that. Truly understanding how much you spend per month, forcing yourself to stick to that plan on a month to month basis and not giving yourself breaks. And I know it really sucks. It sounds like a miser, right? But it's so important because what I do with this money, see, the thing is, we talked about the emergency funding at the start, right? I also put a cap on my emergency funding. So, for example, let's say it's 12 months of expenses, and let's say I spend $2,000 a month. So, $24,000 I'm setting aside, and that's the max. I wouldn't put more money into emergency funds after that. Any more money, I should be investing, you know? So, when we talk about how much cash you should hold, it should be how much maximum cash you should hold, because if you're gonna hold too much cash, then you're not gonna be making your money, work as hard as you are. So these are things that we do. So once you figure out your minimums and your maximums, such as the maximum amount of money you'd spend, this would kind of put into motion a little machine that you yourself build that would keep you sticking to that plan and not allow for yourself to kind of go out of hand, even if you start spending less, and then which would eventually end up with you spending more as the months go by. If all that makes sense, it makes sense in my head. I can draw it out, verbally. It might take some time to catch all that. Yeah.
No, totally. I think it made a lot of sense. I think it's a great advice to have different accounts as well, right? So that you actually really build discipline. I think at the end of the day, as freelancers, as self-employed, as our own business, a business owner, I think discipline is always key
Yes.
to whatever we do, right? So the same should be
Absolutely.
actually applied to financial management as well, right? So thank you so much for all the advice. But before we end, do you have any
Mhm.
last advice or words of encouragement for other creative freelancers during this COVID-19 situation?
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is, I think I need that as well. I think that I would personally say, like, opening up over the last maybe week or so, it's been tough, when we all are. So the thing is, we're not alone, right? This is not something just you are going through. It's not just something I'm going through personally. We're all in this together. We're all having pretty much the same problem. Yes, certain people may have different, individual differences in the problems that they are facing, but on an overall, we're all pretty much facing the same problem. Power community helps truly, and I've seen that luckily on Facebook. Even there's been SG COVID-19 support groups that has popped up. Support groups for F&B people, support groups for people who are in film, in photography. I think the power community definitely helps. I think right now, not only do we have to tap on the resources that we have, we also have to tap on the human, relationships that we have built along the way. I think today we should, not only think about, okay, where am I gonna get my next gig from, as in like, oh, I lost this gig or I lost that gig. Everybody's losing gigs, right? I think moving forward, we need to have a concrete plan, similar like the government. I know I quote the government a lot, but similar, we should have our own reopening phase 1, 2, and 3. We should have our own understanding of what reserves can we tap on. It may not be financial. It could be human relationships. It could be knowledge resources that we have, that we are building up, that we are teaching, that we are now forming groups, we are forming partnerships. And like when things reopen and we can properly start doing business, we can properly start making money again, that we really bounce. That right now we're building this, like, you're on the trampoline, and you are sinking, right? But when you can finally launch yourself, it has to be a big bounce. I think that's the most important. Don't be too late. When everything reopens, then you want to start. It's like, you've wallowed for 5 months, so, oh, I can do business now, but then you are crawling while everybody is really jumping off trampolines. So you need to understand that when all this is over and done with, you need to have that bounce in your step as well, and this is the time to build that, because what else you gotta do, right? So have the power community, build relationships, build communities, tap on human capital, tap on knowledge capitals, and the different resources that we have.
Wow,
I
well
think
said, well said.
that's all that.
Yeah, well said. I really like your referral to the trampoline. That really makes sense, right?
Mhm.
Right. All right. Thank you so much for your time. So, if you enjoy our show, do let us know by clicking the like button or leave a comment below. Check
Yep.
out our freelance creative exchange site and join our Creative at Works community on Facebook and Instagram. Like what Harry say, right now, join a community, and we are all in this together, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Harris, thank you for your time once again. So I hope to see you real soon. And to the rest of the audience, take care and stay safe, everyone. Bye.
Bye bye.